Welcome everybody to the Galileo Annual Conference. And that was a fantastic keynote. I hope you're all coming over from there. It was certainly very interesting to see that. Let me share my screen and start the slideshow. It doesn't want to start the slideshow. Let me resume slideshow. There we go. Let me try this again. Okay, give me one moment. Are you all seeing my slides right now?
Yes.
Okay, I'm not sure why it's not going full screen. There it goes. Excellent. Okay. All right, so welcome everybody. I'm Lucy Harrison. I'm gonna take just a few minutes here at the start and then hand it over to Russell and Barry for a demo. But I did want to just echo the keynote speaker who we just saw about how much change has happened over this past 15 months or so. This time last year, we were in the middle of a Galileo 2020 annual conference that looked very different from what we had planned. We had planned on an in-person meeting this time last year, and when it became apparent that that wasn't going to happen, we were able to pivot pretty quickly and transform that into a series of webinars that took place in May and June of last year. A bit of a scramble, but we got it done. And one of the things we saw, an opportunity that we saw from that, was we actually reached a far wider audience than we had in the past. So this year, knowing that we were going to be doing virtual from the beginning, we were really able to plan out a full conference and pull together some technology in a way that hopefully will be even better than it was last year, and in some ways mirrors a more traditional conference experience a bit more. Another opportunity that we did early on in the pandemic was we and many of our partners in the library world around the state were able to work with the university system to pull together the USG Learning Everywhere site. And again, this is something that we put in place very quickly when it became apparent that people were going to be pivoting to online learning, school from home, not being able to come into the libraries, but something that turned out to be actually a fantastic way to showcase all of the services that we've been providing for a while in some cases across the state. So for example, highlighting the free online courses from eCampus, the Galileo's Affordable Learning Georgia open textbooks, the Georgia Public Libraries, Library Everywhere site, free courses from UGA, Galileo at Home for K-12 students, and also for universities and colleges, highlighting Digital Library of Georgia resources and the Georgia Archives Virtual Vault. And then the New Georgia Encyclopedia and the open learning materials from Affordable Learning Georgia. So this is an example of a way that we were able to showcase all of the fantastic work that we were able to provide as folks were pivoting to this online remote sort of world a year or so ago, and it's remained in place. So what we're going to cover today, we're going to do an update on the Galileo strategic plan. We're going to do an OpenAthens update from Russell, and then he will do a portal redesign demo for y'all. And I just want to remind you all, as we start looking at all of these things, that you all are now welcoming folks back into your libraries. You are starting to return to normal, although normal may not be the normal that it always was. And we've been there with you throughout this pandemic, and we're continuing to be there. So if there's something that you need us to do differently to support you now, please reach out and let us know. So I'm going to give you an update on our strategic plan, which, as you may remember, began about 5 years ago when I came up to Georgia, and was the result of a lot of feedback and planning from all of you all across the state. So this was a process that started in 2016, kicked off with the Regents Academic Committee on Libraries, and moved on to stakeholder sessions with the technical college folks, K-12, public and private schools, the private higher ed libraries, as well as the Georgia Public Library Service. We did a lot of visioning, a lot of that asking ourselves the why. Those of you who were in our keynote session early on, this will seem familiar to what Emily was saying there, that we really looked at the why are we doing things, and then operationalize that into the, how and what are we going to do, with the help of feedback from our Galileo steering committee, from Rackle, and from folks that work here at the Galileo office. And so what we ended up with there was a robust 3 to 5 year plan that we are currently in year 4 of, about to start year 4. So we would normally perhaps be revising that plan around now, and we're going to revise that plan, but probably not this year. We'll probably wait another year or so. There are 5 high-level goals that came out of that plan, and I'm going to skip over goal 1 for now and focus in on goal 2. My slides aren't changing? Oh, okay.
They are now, Lucy, sorry.
They are now. Okay. Thank you. All right, good. Sorry, I should be paying more attention to the chat. I'm sorry about that. Okay, so the EResources and EContent goal is the first one I'm going to talk briefly about. And the high level goal here is to provide a robust set of electronic resources that meet the lifelong learning needs of all Georgians. So what we've accomplished over the past 4 years with that, one of the first things we did was hired the fantastic John Stevens right as our strategic planning came to an end. John came on board and has been executing on that plan ever since. Something else we've done is implement new statistics, some new reports. I'll have a screenshot of that in just a little bit. We also set up an EResources advisory committee for Galileo to look at our portfolio of statewide resources. And those folks have been evaluating, expanding and upgrading content, both statewide for everybody and for the specific groups that they're there to represent. The year before last, we were able to actually expand the content significantly. This past year, unfortunately, we, along with many of you, experienced some budget cuts. So it was more around making sure that what we were getting was still appropriate and trying to retain what we had. John's also implemented the Consortium Manager electronic resources management tool. And those of you who are participating in the opt-in licensing will have seen how fantastic a tool that is. And John's also looking to expand that opt-in licensing, which has historically been mostly aimed at higher ed institutions, looking to expand that into some opportunities for public libraries and K-12 as well. Digital Library of Georgia has been busy adding to our content as well through their newspaper digitization and through their sub-granting program. And then with the Georgia Public Library Service, we have been working on the Simply E open ebook platform with them. We are continuing to look at open access as well, although we are still at the stage where we're kind of trying to establish a plan for that. The goal 3 was around awareness and marketing, because we want all Georgians to know what Galileo is, understand its value and how to access it. So again, once Karen Minton retired in 2018, we were able to hire Joy Woodson in February of 2019. She's been wonderful. She immediately updated all of our marketing plans and surveys, completely revamped the marketing toolkit, and I'll show you a couple of slides from that momentarily, including updating our return on investment brochures, increasing our data-driven marketing communications, streamlining our branding, increasing engagement, especially with the focus on K-12 and social media presence, and conferences. This is Joy's really taken over all of the back end work on our conferences. And one of the things that we saw last year with the pivot to online is that we got a lot more attendees at our online conference last year, and expect to this year as well. At folks who might not normally come in person, especially K-12, where we're showing up for this online conference. It is a lot more work though to pull it off well. So kudos to Joy for making all of that happen. Training, unfortunately, we weren't able to hire any new people for training, but our trustworthy team here in the office of Russell Palmer and Mike White and Ken Hensley have continued to provide excellent training. Anytime we roll out a new product, we have a training plan associated with that. Obviously, over the past few years, we've had a lot of focus on OpenAthens training and on the portal and the administrative module that backs up the portal, a lot of training around those, but also just continuing to update FAQs, online help, videos. That all takes a while. Mike's going to be doing a session tomorrow on the Galileo admin, so please tune in for that if you're interested. And then on Thursday, Ken and Russell will be doing a session on OpenAthens statistics as well. Our fifth goal was around partner tools and services to help you all make better use of Galileo. Part of that has to do with a philosophy of being open and transparent and explaining, why we're making changes that we are, open data when we can, open source when we can, open access as a philosophy moving forward. But part of it also has to do with having a robust, connected community of partner representatives. And part of that is our Galileo Development Advisory Committee. That's a great example of that you'll hear more about in a moment. Also our EResources committees, our Galileo Steering Committee, RACL, all of the functional committees that support the universities in their ILS. These are all examples of really connected partner representatives that are coming together to support Galileo as a whole. And then over the past year, we've also rolled out some new online tools and services or refurbished tools and services, including primarily the About Galileo website. So if you go to aboutgalileo.usg.edu, what you'll see there is as much information as we could streamlined into a really easy to navigate site. So you can find our mission, including our strategic plan, history, participating institutions, links to our data and statistics. You can find overviews of our different programs as well as our governance. So if you're interested in reading back through the minutes of the last few years of the Galileo Steering Committee or RACL, you can find them there. Also Galileo policies. We have a calendar of events. If you have an upcoming event, you can submit a request to have it added to our calendar as well. And then in the tools and training section, that we have our marketing toolkit that I mentioned. We have our statistics toolkit, as well as past training and presentation and materials. The statistics toolkit has a very robust statistics reporting tool, as well as annual reports that are already pre-run for you and frequently asked questions. And then the marketing toolkit I mentioned has undergone a complete revamp this year by Joy. So in addition to an overview video explaining what Galileo is and what we do, we also have our logos, our colors. So if you're embedding our services into your site, this is where you can come to get those logos and colors. The program fact sheets, including that return on investment document that I mentioned, is there. And then promotional items, so bookmarks, rack cards, posters, social media images, all available for you to download, print out. And then if you have a need for hard copies, there's a link at the bottom where you can make a request for those as well. Perhaps most importantly is the red support button up at the top right. So if there are any issues with the system that we know about, you'll find those alert at the top of the page. And you can search our knowledge base. And if you can't find the answer there, submit a question for technical assistance or other assistance. All right, I'm going to stop there for now and hand this over to Barry and Russell to talk about goal 1, user experience. This is our main goal. This has been our driving goal for the past 4 years, to create and maintain a user-centered Galileo environment and interfaces that are easy to use, customizable, personalized, powerful, and comprehensive in scope. So part of that was we knew from the start that we needed to streamline authentication, and we have been full steam ahead with that with our OpenAthens initiative. We also, behind the scenes, implemented a new agile and user-centered development process, which has just been a fantastic way to get changes done quickly and at very high quality. Last summer, we released our version 1 of the improved Galileo research portal, which focused in on the landing page, some changes to the way that you find your library and log in, and then a whole new administrative module behind the scenes. But as Russell will be showing you in just a moment, we're now ready to release phase 2 of that redesign. And of course, we've been doing all kinds of other things as well to help the user experience around the Digital Library of Georgia, around Affordable Learning Georgia, and other services. We've been ensuring accessibility, including on services like the New Georgia Encyclopedia, and of course, maintaining everything else at the same time. So with that, I am going to hand it over. I'm going to stop sharing and hand it over to Russell.
Thank you, Lucy. And just give me 1 second to get my slide deck all ready to go.
Thank you all. If you let me know, Lucy, when you're seeing my slides, that would be great.
I'm seeing them now.
Okay, great. So I'm going to start, as Lucy mentioned, with a quick OpenAthens update, very high level here. But just want to share what we've been working on. As Lucy mentioned, this has been a long-term project. It's taken a lot of time. It's a touch on every single resource in the Galileo environment and also every local resource with our partners EBSCO to get this done and get it working for our libraries. And just want to give you an update on sort of where we are, consortia, group by consortium. And obviously we've completed the university system, and all of our university system schools are rolling well on that. The last large institution that we completed was the University of Georgia with over 1,500 unique electronic resources. That was also our biggest challenge, but we got that done. And we're also currently working backward a little bit, and we're working actually right now with the Georgia State University Law School to complete their implementation. We completed the Technical College System of Georgia. We have one AMPALS institution remaining to complete. And we have done about 16 out of the 25 GPALS institutions. That's our other private academic group. And those are either, 16 of those are either complete or underway. With our Georgia Public Library Service, we are underway with those implementations, and we do appreciate the patience of Live Oak Public Library, who is our first Patient Pines pilot. And we've had some delays as we've been working to get toward our public libraries. We stopped everything related to implementations for a while to work on repairing an access issue related to our current Easy Proxy instances, and we were able to go in and use OpenAthens. So many of you, whether you know it or not, you're already using OpenAthens for some functionality. If you're in a public library or a K-12 library, we're routing some of that traffic through OpenAthens, which is working well. So we've already done a sort of a partial implementation for certain resources to make those resources work properly. Our older proxy connection, you also may have noticed that during the year, last year until recently, early this year, you were getting connection refused errors, particularly if you were using things like eBook Central or ProQuest resources. You were getting these refused connections in certain environments. Well, that problem has been fixed by doing sort of a soft implementation of OpenAthens. And that took us quite a bit of time to get repaired. And now we're working on sort of wrapping up the Pines connection. We should have Live Oak ready to go fairly soon. We're in a testing phase with them now, and then we can go ahead and deploy. The remaining GPLS libraries we'll be working with to form some cohorts and do the implementation with those GPLS libraries, and then the Pines libraries and then the non-Pines libraries. The K-12 libraries, COVID-19 obviously changed priorities for both Galileo and a very busy Georgia Department of Education IT staff. We've had ongoing conversations about what the implementation will look like with K-12. We know it will be a massive project with nearly 200 school systems. So we have taken a step back from this, but we will resume those conversations soon, and we will be implementing K-12 and private K-12 with OpenAthens as soon as we can answer some key questions around authentication with the Georgia DOE staff. We will begin those implementations. The other major development this year is one of the things that was very odd about OpenAthens when we first rolled it out was it only supported one administrative user per institution. That has changed this year, much to our pleasure and joy. We're very thrilled that this has been added. You can now have multiple administrators. So for example, if you need an administrator to handle things on the access services or circulation side, to assign guest accounts, you can have that. And then you can also have someone assigned to do things in the collection development area where you may be at, or the e-resources management area where you're managing your e-resources. So we have added, have added that. It's a very easy functionality to use, but if anyone has questions on using that multi-admin functionality, just let us know in Galileo support, and we'll be glad to help you out with using that. So just a final thing, just remembering that to learn more about the OpenAthens implementation and what we have going on, you're always welcome to send us questions via Galileo support. But we also have an OpenAthens implementation guide that has links to documentation, to training, and to other webinars that we've done about OpenAthens over the past couple of years that will give you information that you need. And I welcome any questions quickly about OpenAthens via the Q&A or the chat. And you see, I'll take a pause before I turn things over to Barry to see if there are any questions. But barring that, I will turn things over to Barry for a couple minutes.
There's a thank you, but no questions.
Okay, great. All right, next up, I'm going to just briefly introduce Barry Robinson. Barry is the Director of IT at UGA Libraries, and he has been so instrumental to a lot of the work we've been doing on the GALILEO redesign. We agreed that we wanted to take an opportunity here to talk briefly about the development team. Many of you don't get to see them out and about, especially over the last year. We want to make sure to recognize them and also to talk a little bit about our processes. So with that in mind, welcome Barry Robinson.
Okay, thank you very much, Russell. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, you sound great.
Okay, fantastic. Well, and thank you, and it's a pleasure to be with everyone this morning. I wanted to mention briefly, as the Director of IT and Library Technology here at the UGA Libraries, many of you are aware we've had a historic partnership with Galileo and work directly for Galileo to provide the technical assistance for this program. So we wanted to take a few minutes today to talk about them. But first, I wanted to move in and talk a little bit about our Galileo Development Advisory Committee. As Lucy and Russell mentioned earlier, this is one of our key additions over the last couple of years that fits nicely with our strategic plan of engagement with community and creating feedback loops where we get down to the heart of the matter. We have the ability to work with this group to do a variety of things: user testing, accessibility training and testing, simple questions about where things should go on the search screen and things like that. And this group has been invaluable for us throughout the last couple years. In fact, they have been with us every step of the way as we have completely redesigned the Galileo search and admin areas there. So you'll notice here, there are a variety of folks that represent a variety of backgrounds for our Galileo partners, and we couldn't do it without them. If we had a little more time, I'd probably read through each name, but we just want to make sure we point out how much influence they've had on the product of Galileo Search. And it really wouldn't have been anywhere near what it is now if we didn't have them on our team. So thank you very much, Galileo. If the GDAC folks, if you're here with us today, we're extremely thankful and grateful for what you've done. All right, Russell. All right, I do want to take, before Russell takes us on the journey of Galileo Search and shows some things, and Lucy, I want to sort of highlight the team that gets things done behind the scenes, and you rarely see these folks. Some of our GDAC members meet with these folks occasionally. But I do want to point them out. Brad Baxter. Brad's been with Galileo for years and years now, and many of you know him for a lot of the work he did on basically creating Galileo in the past. We're very thankful that we have him. Seamus Naron. Seamus has been with us for probably about 3 years now, and Seamus is our development lead. He basically was brought in a good many new skills that have been invaluable to our team, and he's helped us transition to an agile development environment that produces an outstanding amount of work. Josh Weir is new. He's been with us for a few months now. It seems like a few years. Josh has stepped in knowing library lingo and library needs, and has been an instrumental part of our team in just a short amount of time. Sean Purcell. Sean, many of you have worked with Sean in both the GIL environments and Galileo environments. Sean is our development manager. Sean provides just a fantastic layer of between a lot of the developers and our owners of our applications, such as Search and Digital Library of Georgia. And also interfaces with GDAC regularly, and really takes the time to make sure that everything, that all the inputs the development team has coming in, that those are organized appropriately, and keeps on top of which things are priorities going forward. Both the two remaining folks on this list, and we have one more on another slide, Kevin and Phil. Those are our sysadmins, and Kevin's been with us for 6 or 7 years now, and Phil has been part of the team for years and years, and they've done the great work to create the infrastructure behind the scenes to make sure that the applications run appropriately. All right, Russell, one more slide, and I don't want to, last but not least, want to highlight Jason Still. He is a member of the development team. He is our web developer, and just provides a variety of services that for Galileo and DLG and other things. He has also taken on the role of going through last year the accessibility training that CIDI from Georgia Tech provided, and we have a fairly robust process to validate accessibility needs and standards against any developments that we're doing, and Jason takes the lead on that for us. So that's the team behind the scenes. They are doing a fantastic job, and it's amazing how much they've gotten done over this past year. In fact, I would say even during the pandemic, they got just as much done, if not more, than we would have if the pandemic was not going on. So I'm very grateful and thankful to them. I will point out, I mentioned this just a little while ago with Seamus bringing in the Agile component to our development processes. We use 2-week sprints, where every 2 weeks we have a production push of our product. So we're pretty quick at developing bug fixes and any sort of new features every 2 weeks. We do save, though, the major new features that require training, documentation, communication. We do save those currently for 2 times a year, July and December. And we, of course, have the one coming up with our new Galileo search in July. We also have been using quite a lot of user-centered development in our work with GDAC, and also internally, where we work on developing user stories that guide our development practice. This has been an extremely good reminder for us to identify who our users are, what are their needs, what are their stories, and try to center our development and our priorities with GDAC and other committees based on what the users need and what those priorities are. And of course, I mentioned accessibility earlier with Jason Steele, our work last year with CI, the Center for Inclusive Design and Innovation at Georgia Tech, where we worked with them to go through a variety of trainings with us, as well as analyzing and evaluating a Galileo search as we redesigned it. So that's really the core of what we try to do, agile, user-centered development, and focused on accessibility. And that's pretty much it. Before I turn it back over to Russell, are there any questions or comments about our team or what strategies we deploy?
I don't see that any have come in.
Okay.
Well,
Russell,
thank
I
you so much,
believe it's,
Barry.
yep, I believe it's
Yep.
back to you. Thank you.
Thank you. And yes, and just to reiterate, we work so closely together, all of us, every day, long meetings, long discussions, philosophical discussions, and it's so much fun to work with Barry and the development team and the system administrators on all that we do. Well, moving on now, the next thing that we'll need to do is talk a little bit about the work that we've done toward our phase 2 of the Galileo redesign here with this release coming up in July. It's my pleasure to be able to share some of the work that we've done live via our Galileo staging site, but I'll also just walk you through some aspects of what we've done. And pardon my weirdness in the browser, because I just want to make sure that I can toggle easily here between different applications, because I'm going to do most of this demo via a live demo here. So bear with me. Just starting out, as Barry mentioned, we continue to do iterative development in the form of sprints. And we have been releasing features since the redesign 2020 was completed last July. And some of the things that we worked on immediately, it was so great because as soon as we released, we began to get feedback both from GDAC and the Galileo community. And that's really informed our process for the second phase of the redesign as well. But some of the user-facing features that you'll see currently in Galileo that we've been working on is we immediately knew that based on feedback that we got right away from our public libraries was that our public libraries missed the kids' views. That elementary, middle, and high school view. So we immediately convened the public library members, the GDAC team. We had some discussion on that, and we were able to add kids' views to our public library Galileo instances again fairly quickly. So that's work that we're very proud of, and thanks to Brad and James and others that worked on that. Another thing that we sort of moved away from and immediately went back to with feedback from you all is while things were sort of listed alphabetically in the Galileo environment, you all immediately missed things like A to Z lists and direct links to A to Z lists, and also direct links to the kids' views. So the team worked very fast to redeploy those things, and you have more access to A to Z lists in Galileo now, I think, than ever before. And being able to provide those direct links to the kids' views for both our public and academic libraries in the tools area of Galileo is going to be, I think, important going forward for you all who manage things like a kid site on a public library to provide that direct link to elementary or high school views or middle school views as needed. We updated the Galileo embedded search box and made some improvements to that. We've been slowly adding, again, this based on feedback and user studies that we've done and the strategic plan. We've added some tools in the form of Power Notes and another tool called ZBib that we will be adding to Galileo. Power Notes is a citation management tool. It is a free tool in its current form that we offer through Galileo, but it is a very powerful way to organize notes and citations. And then ZBib is a more direct way to, it's an open source tool related to Zotero, which many libraries use. And it's a free tool where one can generate a citation very quickly on the fly, using a link or a partial citation. And finally, Joy and Sean Purcell have been working on our release notes. We've added release notes so that as we do these iterative releases, you all can be informed about what's going into Galileo on with each one of those sprints so that you can adjust things and update things and be aware of new features or fixes that are going into Galileo regularly. So with that in mind, let me go ahead and share with you the new features that we've added here, both in recent days, and then also some things that are forthcoming. I'm going to go ahead and go into our Galileo search staging site. And I'm going to go ahead and log in. I'm going to be using, just because sort of all the functionality that we created and added over the last 2 years is contained nicely within the K-12 environment. So I'm going to be using the K-12 demo account here in our staging site. So the first thing that you'll notice, and I'm going to kind of just go top to bottom with what we've been working on. The first thing that you notice is we've created a nice, new, clear, clean header, and we've moved some things around in the header environment. One of the things that was pointed out early on was that it wasn't very obvious where one would go to change views. So we wanted to reorient that into the left-hand corner of the page and make a clear down arrow so that now it is very clear where a user goes to change their view. We also, they've got great feedback from GDAC that it would be nice if instead of just being sort of a singular picture that we would provide text and a smaller image when we did that toggle to the different views. So now one can go from elementary, middle, high school, and educator and it's also a full view in the public library environment very easily using this toggle. We also create a little bit of white space here to kind of differentiate it and separate it from the main Galileo header. As we go through the additions that you see here at the top of the screen, one of the next things you'll see here is the try beta. We're going to spend more time with this later, and we're still working on the naming and the location for this. We frozen development this week because we knew we'd be demoing, but we're thinking about where we can best put this and best name this in order to provide the best experience. You see if I hover here, this is try the Galileo beta search. This is how one will turn the bento search on and off. There's been some concern as we've been talking with people about the bento search that, oh, well, we were going to taking away the traditional EDS. No, that's never been our intention. We want to provide multiple search options that do different things. So when I click on the try beta, it's simply going to turn on the Galileo bento search. So this may change before you see it live in terms of location, but basically you'll have a way to toggle the beta search, the bento search on and off, and I'll spend more time sharing that with you in a few minutes. One of our long-term goals, again, harkening back to the strategic plan that Lucy mentioned earlier, is personalization. It's something that our users have been asking for and more familiar with. And this is something that is, as mentioned, is being facilitated nicely by OpenAthens. Eventually, this welcome user will welcome the user personally. Right now, it just gives them the log out option. But eventually, this will be the pathway that users follow to get to personalized features. Now, there's a lot of work to be done on this, and this will be something that we're working towards making improvements on toward December. But eventually, we're hoping that we can provide a suite of services customized to individual users that they can access via single sign-on, since we're providing that single sign-on service with OpenAthens. So this is a first step in that direction. If a user had logged in with their name, they would see their name here. And then finally, the support button, and this remains the same. Another thing that we've heard a lot of, not really complaints, but a lot of sort of interest in was that we caused some confusion by having things so much down the page, and we wanted to make it easier for someone to click on the all databases link and get a link to that database list, that A to Z list, without having to scroll the page. So we're moving that more forward on the main page. If you click on the try beta here, these buttons are also the main way that you're going to get to that, because ultimately, one of the things that we've added to the bento search is a database search. So we didn't feel with that added that there was any need to retain that second and confusing database search down the page. So longer term, we'll be integrating more of that together, but in the short term, we didn't want to provide a jarring transition with that. So I'm gonna turn that beta back off. And then just say this all journals goes out to the journals A to Z list, whether that's for an academic library provided by Alma or a public library or other library it's provided by EBSCO. And then finally in the spotlight, this is just a direct link down. Again, part of the of the issues people have mentioned is, well, I don't see the spotlight when I first log into the page. So this will take you quickly down to that spotlight area where you can review what is there. So we move these links here to make it a little bit more easy to navigate across the board. So just a few more things that we have added, just informationally, and we'll go into the database search in just a minute. Wanted to point out that here in the footer, this is where we've added the redesign release notes. If I click here, you can see the portal redesign information. And this is just giving you a list of all the different features that we have added into the production version, the public version of Galileo. So we've added Zotero bid to the tools, the Galileo database search enhancement is there, Galileo admin enhancements are there. So anything that we've added that is relevant to you all in that recent, now we're going to add every single little bug fix, but anything that is relevant to end users, we want to make sure that that information is there for you in those release notes. So you'll find that in the footer of the Galileo page here. As mentioned, we have added some new things in the tools area, and we're continuing to grow and expand and think about how we might want to handle this tools area in the future. Currently, the tools area serves us well. So if I wanted to embed a Galileo search box, I can go and get the code to do that here, and you can see what those search boxes look like. Jason Steele did a lot of great work to make the look and feel of the Galileo embedded search box more consistent with the Galileo redesign. There will be a Galileo beta search box. So if you want to add the bento search to your Galileo, to your local library webpage, you can do that. So we will provide an embedded search box for both. And we're continuing to evolve how we want to do that. So the other tools that we've added, the shareable links, as I mentioned, this is a great opportunity to promote this. We have those direct links in a K-12 view. So I have those direct links to the elementary, middle, high school, and educator view. And that shareable link will just provide me with a link I can copy and put on my website or send to a parent or student. And then the shareable links to K-12 database lists. In this case, they have the different shareable links for A to Z list by view. But if I want to send or post on my website a link to the Galileo A to Z list for the elementary view, I can do that just by using the shareable link. I'll copy this one. I'll just open another window to show you that it will go directly to that elementary list of databases. So that's, again, other additions that we've done there in the tools area. And just going back up, some features that we've been adding recently. I'm going to go into the database page and I'll search for Academic Search Complete, one of our favorites that we all love to go to when we're looking for general articles. Just some work that we are doing. Again, thank you to Joy for her great editing work on this. We're working to trim down the size and increase the readability of our database description. So if I go into the more info here, you'll see that we've trimmed this down. We've still included all the relevant information, including things like what subjects are covered, but we cut way back on the level of detail because that detail is always changing. The number of journals that are covered, the number of ebooks that are available. So we've chosen to really work on, it'll take us some time to work through all of our database descriptions, but we are working to trim those down and make them more accessible, more readable, and get rid of jargon. The average patron does not care that this database comes from EBSCO or all the details about what EBSCO does to provide this database. They care about what's in it and what it does. So we'll continue to work to do that and to improve those database descriptions. The other thing that we added in the all databases and the database descriptions, and this is something I'm very excited about, we have, and I'll talk a little bit more about admin changes in a couple of minutes, is we have, if you go into the more info area of a database, this is active now, but the formats are now clickable. So if I want to view more databases that cover articles or books, ebooks, and book reviews, we're still doing some work on consolidating these and improving these formats and subjects. But what we've done is we've made them clickable. Another thing that we've done is we've made these keywords, they're clickable, but for central Galileo resources now, like the ebook academic collection, admin users at your institution can now add additional keywords. This is functionality that we're adding to make the database search more functional and more accurate on an individual institutional basis. So we're very pleased to have done that development work. So, and finally, obviously you all have been looking forward to seeing the power and ability of the bento. And I want to go ahead and share that with you quickly. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on the try beta here again. And as I mentioned, this puts the spotlight more forward, and the database search is no longer there because this effectively now acts as a database search. We chose to give users the ability to limit to full text only here if they would like to. And we will probably work on this, but the advanced search currently is their means to get to the advanced search in the EBSCO Discovery Service if they would like to. And so if I click on that advanced search button, it'll just take me to the standard advanced EDS search, not the Galileo provided bento search. So I will point out a couple of things about bento. This is going to be a beta, so we will be continuing to work on it. There are some things that we are continuing to work on and tweak now. It works really well. It will continue to be improved, and we will continue to make improvements that will allow individual libraries to make some choices about their bento going forward as we work toward the December 2021 release. So with that in mind, I'm going to go ahead and run a couple of searches in the bento. And what I've been doing lately that really shows this off nicely is if I just search for Georgia, excuse me. Go ahead and click search. Now we'll point out this is pulling information from the EBSCO Discovery Service API. And anytime you're searching across a lot of information like this, it can take time. It actually works really quickly just now. But we try to, you may need to give it time as you're using it to make sure that the search populates properly. We have some sort of, as you saw, there's some little working dots in each of the bento areas to let you know, hey, it's still working on pulling the data in here. So it has effectively searched databases, and in the slide deck, and I won't get into every single aspect of this, but in the slide deck, you will see that the databases area is pulled from the Galileo database index behind the scenes in Galileo. Journals are pulled from the EBSCO Discovery Service list. News is a category. We are working on encyclopedias. Currently, the encyclopedia in this view is pulling from the Funk and Wagnall's New World Encyclopedia, which is an EBSCO resource. We're also working so that it will pull from Britannica for our institutions that have Britannica. And eventually we will hope to add also the New Georgia Encyclopedia to the encyclopedia entries on the bento page. As far as navigating the bento, we have made sure, again, we often talk about below the fold in terms of web development, and we're working on making sure that things locate properly when we're installing the articles down here. But do note that these clickable buttons will take you directly to the category that you're most interested in. So if I'm doing a search and let me just expand my search with a Boolean and here, join Georgia and Civil War, and I'm looking for primary sources, that goes down the page a little bit, but if I go ahead and click on those primary sources, it will open up that window here for me so that I can see those primary sources first and foremost. And we've done a lot of work to make sure that we get the abstract, or at least partially, into the display, both on the main bento display and within the database list that's provided. We got a lot of feedback on this, and everyone felt more comfortable leaving the results list within Galileo. And thanks to Josh, you did a lot of very good work to make this happen. So now I've searched for primary sources, and then maybe I'm going through this list and I'm not loving everything that I see, or I'm not finding exactly what I want using the bento search. And I decide, well, I want to do something more, or I want to dig in using the EBSCO discovery search. What we've done here is we've obviously listed the results and the numbers here, but we also have a refined search, and I can click on that. And that refined search will just take my search out to the EBSCO discovery service, where I can sort of view it. I can use those limiters and facets in the EBSCO discovery search now to refine this 8,328 results that I had previously, and do more with it within the EBSCO discovery service environment at this point. So those are the basics of the bento search. And go back to Galileo main page here. And at this point, I will pause and see if there are any questions before I go briefly back to the slide presentation to make sure I cover the admin side of things as well.
We had a number of questions about how do you get to the shareable links, or how do you get to the marketing materials. We've answered those, I think, in the Q&A, Russell, but take a look at the end and see if you want to add anything there. One question that's coming in about, do we need to all the Georgia results are coming in for Georgia the state, which is interesting that nothing for Georgia the country is coming in. But certainly if you're expecting to, to see something there about Georgia the country at a higher ed, or K-12 level, yes, we'll need to probably take a look at that. And then there's And then there's a question about the try beta button. So just to be clear, we have not released this yet. We're giving you a sneak preview. We will be releasing the try beta button on July 18th.
Yes, thank you for that, Lacey. And great questions. I see there may be some look in the Q&A myself. Yeah.
So a couple more questions around that. Yes, Bento will be available for everybody, but it's not going to show up as an option to try until on July 18th. And then the refined search is an important button, maybe more of a button interface.
Yeah, and we actually had some conversation about the refined search button, its location and the size of it. It's not really obvious, so we're continuing to look at that. That is definitely something we'll be working on this until for a little while to come yet, before that release date. Great comments, and thank you all so much. And any other questions or comments, Lucy, before I do a quick look at a couple of other things we've added?
Just a thank you, and looking forward to sharing with the students in August.
That's great. So just a few other things here, and I'll go quickly, Lucy. I know we're short of time, but anything I have, just point out that the slide presentation, I've tried to make it clear where to get it, whether it be the tools or what have you, and you'll have this after the fact. This is just an example. I like how Georgia Highlands is integrated the Galileo embedded search box. Just a quick note, this is just a screen capture from ZoterraBib, and you can just, again, copy a URL from an article from a publisher site, and it'll generate the citation for you. And Lucy, I know you used Power Notes for a project that you were working on to organize your thoughts about a vendor-related project. So it's a pretty powerful tool, even in its free version. Just the release notes, got notes on all these things, and just some admin features that we've added. I mentioned these already, but you can now add keywords to Galileo Central Resources, and this is, again, another means to improve the searchability of the database search. And if you don't want users to see Power Notes received in it, this has already been added to Galileo Admin. You can, for those of you who have an administrator for the Galileo backend at your institution, you can turn that off in Galileo Admin. And you can always contact us if you'd like us to turn that off. We just didn't want to force anyone to have these tools if you're using other tools for citations or bibliographies. And then, as I mentioned, this feature has been added. Now admins can now update their institutions about links. This is something that we only could do at Galileo for years and years and years. And it was, I think, always a frustration because they would always get behind. But now administrative users at the library can now update those about links that are in that about the institution area on the main Galileo portal page. So we're really pleased that you all can facilitate that now. And again, just a final reminder that the bento search, as you observed, there's some things that we need to work on. It is going to be a beta, but we look forward to you all using it. As you said, introducing it to your students, finding where we can improve it, and sharing that with us as we go through this process. And also, I just wanted to show my funny t-shirt slide because I thought that was great. If you're curious about what's in each box mapping for the bentos, we have collated that information together. This could be changing a little bit before we release, and we will have an FAQ on it also, but just wanted to, as you go back and review the slides, if you're curious as to what's in an individual bento box on those bento pages, you can find out how we formed them up. And this was done with the feedback of GDAC. Finally, I will be doing specifically bento search training. And again, this is already linked. If you go to the Galileo About page and go to the training area, I have the links to these open for registration there. I'm going to do a 30-minute webinar on the bento search. And I'm also going to, after we release in July, I'm going to do a series of training sessions, just covering a lot of what I covered today, but in more detail, taking a little bit more time and a little Q&A time in smaller groups to answer your questions in groups for academic, public, and K-12 libraries. And those are, again, they're on the Galileo training page and available for registration. And that's all I have, Lizzie. Thank you so much.
All right, need to unmute myself. And yes, so I've just got a couple more slides to wrap up here. And I just realized that I've been saying July 18th, which is a Sunday. It's actually July 19th, which is a Monday. So let me make sure everybody can see that on the screen. All right, so upcoming, what we've got, we're going to be releasing this as a beta on July 19th, which is a Monday. And what that will mean for you is that that try beta, or whatever we end up calling it, button will appear when you come in, or when your patrons, your students come in through the Galileo portal. If you have an embedded search on your local page, that's not going to automatically default to the beta. Although, as Russell said, we will have an option for you to start using the beta as an embedded search widget as well at that point. Throughout the fall, our plan is to get feedback from you all, listen to what you want changed. We have a number of improvements that we are already planning to roll out through the fall, but certainly if there are others, we will look forward to hearing from you about those and rolling those in throughout the fall. It will become the default for folks coming in through the Galileo portal by January. So sometime over the winter break, we will remove the try beta option from the Galileo portal, and then this new bento approach will be the default for folks coming in through the Galileo portal. Although, again, if you have the classic search will remain available. If you have an embedded search that continues using the classic search, that will continue working. We have plans for phase 3 and ongoing. As we've reiterated several times today, our approach is one of continued iterative improvements. So we don't want to wait for a massive release 6 months or a year from now. We'll continue improving as we get feedback from you, from our Galileo Development Advisory Committee, and from the end users and the patrons using your libraries. Some of the things that we already know that we want to do. Right now, we are relying heavily on EBSCO APIs to bring resources into those bento boxes. We know that we want to be able to get results from other places, for example, from the Pines catalog or from Alma Primo catalog, directly from Digital Library of Georgia or Affordable Learning Georgia or the New Georgia Encyclopedia, and or the Digital Public Library of America or the historic newspapers. So these are all options that we'll be exploring to bring content directly from the source into bentos. We want to provide better options for you as institutions to customize the content and the layout. We've already given you lots of options for adding links and for spotlighting resources, but we want to do even more so that you can truly customize this to meet your users' needs. Of course, as we get more and more people on OpenAthens, we'll be able to take full advantage of that functionality to provide some additional customizations, perhaps at the user level. And ultimately, what we'd like to be able to do is create, one sort of way for folks to log on to Galileo that brings together their university account, their K-12 account, their public library account. And then I'll just mention very quickly that we are continuing to look at our strategic planning. There are a few big things outside the realm of the Galileo portal that we need to sort of get our heads wrapped around, including potential library management system, a change for the universities. We'll be doing an RFP next year. Of course, there are questions around funding, and ideally, we will wait until we are back in a position where we can do in-person strategic planning before we update the strategic plan, but we will be doing that at some point over the next few years. So let me stop there and see if there's any other questions. Okay, so yes, one comment from Tammy. Thanks for the timely information, and it's great to see that Galileo uses feedback. We absolutely do, and we use feedback from a lot of different methods, including the survey that we do annually, the various committees that we've got, and any feedback that you send us directly. Remember, you can use that support button on the About Galileo website to give us feedback at any time. Any last questions that anybody's got? All right, well, there will be much more training opportunities around this moving forward. Again, when you see this beta showing up in mid-July, please check it out. Give us feedback. We want to make this the best possible interface for you and for your patrons. So please give us lots of feedback on how we can make it better. All right, thank you to Russell and to Barry. And we will leave it there. Enjoy the rest of the conference, everybody.